Thank you so much, Secretary Chris.
All right, you remain safe, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was it from Bamenda. At least we know what is going on there in Bamenda now. The people are locked home. The people are made not to go out, not by their own wills, but the will of the invading French Cameroon army. And once more, let me say this very, very clearly to the invading colonial French Cameroon army, that there is no way that any form of intimidation coming from them is going to subdue the uprising Amazonian, Southern Cameroonian people who want nothing but a free and independent Southern Cameroon. So again, in the days ahead, I'm going to be doing a lot on this subject, ladies and gentlemen. But in the meantime, all of you in Bamenda, remain safe. And remember, Mondays remain our lockdown, ghost towns days. Our lockdown, ghost towns days. And let me assure those enemy forces invading our towns and cities, you continue to make the lives of our people a living hell. We will make sure that none of you put on any colonial uniform in any of our towns and cities. Yes, that is what will happen. You will make the lives of our people a living hell. We will make sure that none of you will walk freely on the streets of Amazonia with a colonial uniform on your body. So, okay. Thank you. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am joined by a very, very powerful Pan-Africanist. I was supposed to be coming to you today with Dr. Ambassador Arikana, but unfortunately something came up as an emergency and she could not be here. However, my exclusive guest for the day is here. And I am talking about Dr. Israel Davidson. The middle name is a little tough there to pronounce, but we will get there soon. But I am joined by Dr. Israel Davidson, who is joining me all the way from London. Lots and lots of you out there have probably listened to him. In the video, a short footage that he made, it went viral. It went viral everywhere, and Africans are still talking about it. I'd like you to sit still and for the next few minutes, please listen to Dr. Israel Davidson.
Please lend me your ears and concentration for just 4 minutes. Now, for several years now, I've had the privilege and blessing of traveling, working with professionals and educating students across the world. UK, China, Singapore, Malaysia, South Africa, Greece, and counting. However, ever so often, I engage in soul-searching thoughts on Africa, Nigeria, our homeland, and the black race in general. You see, I can't seem to work out why, despite abundant human and natural resources and exemplary achievements of Nigerian professionals abroad, our nation remains backward in all indices of human progress. Look, recently, a 1988 statement by William Botha of the apartheid South Africa challenged me to tears. Now, he said, black people cannot rule themselves because they don't have the brain and mental capacity to govern a society. You give them guns, they will kill themselves. Give them power, they will loot the treasury. Give them independence and democracy, they will use it to promote tribalism, ethnicity, bigotry, hatred, killings, and wars. Now, Fellow citizen, let me challenge you. Have you, your leaders or government, proved this racist South African wrong since the statement in 1988? Think about that. You see, we are the only race that is ready and willing to sacrifice meritocracy, national development and progress, to favor protection of tribal and religious loyalty, despite the recycling consequences before us since independence. Yet, we wonder why our nation remains the poverty capital of the world. Yet, we wonder why the black race is increasingly undervalued and humiliated across the world. Who did this to us? Who did this to us? Do you ever ask this question?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am joined by Dr. Israel Davidson, joining me from London, and let me just do this. Dr. Israel Davidson, ladies and gentlemen, is a senior academic at the Newcastle Business School in the United Kingdom. Is the United Kingdom's chartered management accountant and a 2019 presidential candidate in Nigeria. As you've just seen on your screen, he is the author of that video. Who did this to us? Who did this to us? The video that went viral. Dr. Davidson, it's quite a pleasure having you here, sir.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. It's a great pleasure being here.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that you are doing excellent out there in the United Kingdom.
I'm trying. I am.
Wonderful. Well, listening to you, you laid out succinctly, exactly what is Africa today, the problem of Africa today. What was the inspiration behind that clip? Because I'm telling you, it went viral, and anyone who took time to listen to it can't stop thinking, meditating upon the issues that you raised there. What was the inspiration behind it?
Thank you, Chris. I'll tell you what. I've had the opportunity and the privilege of traveling across the world. Not actually on holiday, no, to do my work, which is in education consultancy. I've traveled quite extensively, and one of the things that baffles me is that anywhere I go, whether it's China, Russia, South Africa, wherever that I go, and I see clear evidence of progress, I keep wondering, why Africa remains where it is. And the other thing there also is that myself and a number of African colleagues, whether in the medical field, whether in education, whether in Europe or America, we're performing extremely well. These countries are relying on us to deliver services. In fact, they're giving us extra responsibilities. Like I mentioned earlier on, I have been on several missions on behalf of Newcastle Business School to different parts of the world. Now, at some times, I think I was on a conference in Russia, where one of the top officials called me by the side and asked me and said, look, you guys are very good. I've been to various conferences around the world, and I see Africans, and you guys are very good at what you do. Why can't you help your country? And I think this has been bothering me over time until I eventually I came across that disturbing 1988 statement by William Botha. And I think it hit me like a bullet. And I couldn't control myself. Actually, I shed tears a little bit because, like I said, there are capable Africans all over the world performing extremely well. So how come our own mother continent, we are so behind? We have the natural resources, we have the human resources. Uh, God has given us, favor. We have the sun, we have a virgin land, so many things. And I think that is precisely what made me to say, look, I need to draw the attention of Africans across the world to the realities of Africa and to get them to begin to think through this question: who did this to us? Because we have everything, but why are we still behind? And being humiliated all over the world by even people whom we are better off than. I think that's what exactly led me to make that video.
Talking about humiliation, Africans are humiliated wherever they find themselves, be it in China, be it in Europe, be it in the USA. African leaders are humiliated everywhere, in every part of the globe. But to my understanding, when I talk about the African, I mean the African on the street. The problem, I've always said, the problem of Africa is the African leader who is exposed enough to do what is right. Most of them studied in these same countries, in London, in France, in USA, but they do nothing back in their own countries to change the lives of their people, and which is why we are humiliated and ridiculed everywhere across the globe. Am I wrong?
Well, I wouldn't say you're wrong. Not all of them are actually as exposed as you said. Not quite all of them read abroad. I think one of the biggest challenges that we face in terms of leadership is that the people who make the choice, I'm talking about the electorates, they are not well informed. Many of them are still voting on tribal or religious basis. And I think the second part.
You don't think you're overstating it to think that most of them who make the decisions are not well informed? I mean, most of this, if you are talking about the era of the Inyereres, the Hufert Boani, the KK Kenneth Counters, all those ancient leaders. If you are talking about their era, that would be understandable, but you're talking about contemporary Africa. Even if the leaders are not educated or have been in power for too long to change anything, at least we know that they have cabinet members who are well educated, who know what policy should be, but they just would not do anything.
Look, Chris, I'm in education, and I've come to realize that there is a very clear distinction between schooling and education. And I think you're referring to a number of people who were schooled and they have a qualification, but actually they're not educated. They are not actually educated. When you're educated, it gives you the power to reason and to think. And when you simply go through the schooling process, you simply learn how to regurgitate, information and pass, and then you head off. So I've come to realize of late that even amongst our professionals in Africa, many of them are not really educated. They are not. Because I've engaged some of them in conversation, trying to redirect them to begin to think in a very patriotic way. Yet in the end, you see them slide back into religious or tribal. areas of thinking. And that's the point I'm making here. Yes, there are a number of us, a number of Africans who have degrees. But if you cannot realize that you need to act in the interest of the wider society, if you cannot condemn or criticize the people in leadership simply because they are either from your part of the country or your tribe, or that you share the same religious belief with them, then that individual is not educated. And that's what is keeping us far too, behind, to be honest. And so that's what exactly that's what I was trying to explain there. Yes, there are a number of them, qualification-wise, they do have them, but they do not have that ability to think deeper and to make decisions that will benefit the wider society. That, for me, that's not education.
Now, you talked about the African leaders preparing us for the next colonization of Africa. And what did you mean by that?
I think what I mean by that is that, you see, if you look back into history, one of the things I have learned, in my research is that I think I need to be careful here. I don't want to overgeneralize. But a lot of people in power, even within the slave trade era, were so selfish and greedy that they were prepared to make decisions to favor themselves just in order to acquire a foreign gift or a foreign object, just to be able to make sure that they look different, in the eyes of, their colleagues. And so, if you look in recent times, let me refer to the issue of China, for example. There is, everybody's afraid of China at the moment.
Right.
And if wherever you go to, you have series of articles wondering whether China is the next colonial master. But if you look at it very carefully, you realize that, China arrived in Africa with two prone attacks. They arrived as business people, which of course, if you're a business person, you have to evaluate the environment in which you're going to invest. And then, of course, you make your decision to protect your own interest. And the Chinese government, though they are giving, loans, those loans are not free gifts. They realize the terrain, the African terrain, where those investments are going into.
Right.
They realize the level of corruption amongst our leaders. They also realize the possibility that some of those loans may not be recovered. Of course, they had to impose conditions to protect themselves. However, now this is where I am talking about our leaders preparing us for the next phase of colonization. Anytime there is a discussion, a business discussion between two parties, let's say in this case between the Chinese government and an African government, negotiation is about two individuals discussing and arriving at an agreement that is suitable to both of them. Now, unfortunately, for whatever reason, a number of these African leaders are prepared to sign documents they can't even read. Let me give you an example. In Nigeria that I come from, it was discovered recently that a number of loan contracts were written in Chinese. And African and Nigerian officials signed this document they cannot read, they cannot understand.
Right.
And hidden inside that document is a collateral on our national assets. Now, how could you make such a dangerous decision? It's a very, very,
Now,
careless
who do you
one.
blame for that, though?
No, I blame the leaders. I blame those
Okay.
people who went for the negotiation, of course. Yeah, of course, I do blame them. And that is
Yes.
why I'm saying that they are preparing us for the next phase of our colonization.
Right.
So if China, within the contract, have written some terms and conditions that are not favorable to us, and our leaders signed on the dotted line, and the Chinese are giving more and more loans, and with the hope that in future, if there is a default, they will have to lay hold of our national assets. Isn't that the beginning of our problems?
Yes.
And I think the other thing also, if you do your research, you discover also that a number of countries, including Saudi Arabia and others, are acquiring land across Africa, either for agricultural purposes or whatever. And that most of the land they've purchased are outright purchase. So you are looking at a situation that in the near future, Africa will be colonized, the land will be dominated, and we're looking, almost kind of going towards what happened in South Africa and apartheid era. I think that these were some of the considerations I had in mind when I spoke about our leaders, preparing us for our next phase of colonization or slavery.
Now, you talked about a number of things that the Chinese are doing. Now, there are two countries that have really severe weight on Africa at the moment, and I'm sure you have witnessed this. It is the Chinese and then the French. The Chinese are the neo-colonialists, while the French remain the colonial masters. When you look at all of Africa, the most underdeveloped countries in Africa remain French colonies. And somebody has said, when the colonialists left, the French never left. The French, you look at Mali, you look at Gabon, you look at, all over the place, Ivory Coast and so on and so forth. The French never left. Now, the Chinese have come. And they are even doing much more than what the re-colonialists did. I think Africans are realizing this very, very late, because when the Chinese started coming, everybody was hailing at them because they saw them constructing roads, they saw them building schools, they saw them building hospitals, and they thought, oh, these guys are really good friends. But little did they know, as we have said, our people are signing documents without reading them, and they are signing the next generation of Africans into the hands of the Chinese. And then the Chinese are giving Africans these loans, but they give the loans with the right hand, take it back with the left hand, and that when they give you a contract, they make sure that it is a Chinese company that is executing that contract. It is a Chinese employee that can work on that contract. So they end up taking everything back. So look at the rule. I want you to take a look at the rule of the Chinese and the French in contemporary Africa.
Well, look, I always want to look at these things from two angles. First of all, I think we need to give the Chinese some credit. The Chinese were under communism for so long, and I know that we were all educated to hate communism, to believe that communist countries are backward and all that. And what we didn't realize was that a day will come when this communist country will take a little bit of what is good about capitalism, return a little bit of what is good about, in their own perception of communism, and then use it to create a governance system, a business system that has conquered the whole world. That today, even the capitalist countries are owing the communist country. Isn't that amazing? Right. So I think we need to give them some credit there. And to me, they are like a role model. They should be a role model to African leaders to say, look, your situation, you can transform it if really you mean to. Now, why did they come to Africa? I think that's the first question. Why did they decide to choose Africa? Remember that the Americans and Europeans that were there, they had all the money for several years, but they never invested in Africa the way that the Chinese have done. The terms of their loans were conditional. They had to use it to condition the behavior of our leaders, knowing too well too that they are, corrupt as well. Now, the Chinese made a decision that Africa holds a promise: economic growth, prosperity of the future. So while the Americans were sleeping, the Chinese were able to realize that Africa actually is not a dark continent. And so they made that conscious decision to penetrate into this market. It was a risk to them, it's a risk that they took. Now, like every business person, that's the point I was actually making, they had to lay the conditions. They were coming to Africa for natural resources. They were coming to Africa for cheap labor, but also realize that African countries are also very poor and that some of the loans they will give may not be repaid. So they laid some conditions and said, look, if you don't repay us, we will have to hold some of your national assets. Now, our leaders had the choice to make a decision, either to walk away, but because of greediness, lack of education, selfishness, and also, Chris, one other thing I believe is that because most of these leaders surrounded themselves with their tribesmen and women rather than people who are qualified and capable. So when the Chinese present their specialists during negotiation, the period, the African governments were not able to provide people of capabilities. And so when eventually the deal is signed, it has always been against the African countries. So I don't want to blame the Chinese 100%. I don't want to blame them 100%. I think the blame should be shared between our leaders who are so myopic, selfish, greedy, and tribalistic. And there is a lesson there for us. So to be honest, I'm not one of those people who is prepared to put all the blames on China. China is doing what they are doing in the interest of their own nation. They want to grow, they want to continue to dominate the world. It's not a wrong ambition.
But I get the point. I get the point that you are making there. We cannot put all the blames on the Chinese, or at least our leaders, I would say we should have at least 60% of the blame because they signed the contracts. And unfortunately, without reading the contracts. Now, last year, 2019, you ran for the presidency of Nigeria to become Nigerian president. Let me ask you, knowing these kinds of agreements that the Chinese have signed with African leaders, in fact, some of these contracts were signed in Nigeria with the Nigerian government, with the officials not reading through the document before signing it. If you had become president of Nigeria, what would you have done with those contracts? Just let them go on until they expire, or you call the Chinese, sit on the table and say, listen, this is an unfair trade. We've got to do something about this. What would you have done, sir?
Well, I think it depends on the stage of the project itself. If these are projects that are still not yet started, and if they're very important for the development of the nation, I'll ask for renegotiation. And then if the Chinese are not prepared to renegotiate, of course, we have to terminate that. And I will do what most leaders in Africa fail to do. You terminate it, you broadcast to the nation, tell them the reasons, tell them the benefit of the project, but tell them that because of the conditions imposed by China, you are not prepared to hold future generations hostage. And I think I will be supported by my people. There's no doubt about that. But if it is a project that's already underway, I mean, the project has already, started, because of the terms, my understanding is that the Chinese build in a clause that even makes it difficult once you have started the project, to cancel it. In fact, it becomes even more expensive than completing it. In that case, bearing in mind that Chinese are powerful economically, military, and other things, they are very, very influential at UN. we'll have to, continue with our project. But what I would then do is to prosecute all those who were involved in negotiating that contract and freeze their assets. So their assets will be part of the collateral for the Chinese loan. I think that's one of the things I would do without actually thinking too much over it. They'll be lucky not to be in jail, but like I said, they will have to be prosecuted, no doubt about that.
All right, you mentioned something about COVID-19. What Africa suddenly wake up to discover. One thing that most of us observed was the attitude of the Chinese on Africans in their country. You will recall that when that thing escalated, the Chinese first tried to blame it on Africans, bringing it into China. And they were then beginning to push Africans out of China. They will go into your home and get you packed out with your family to nowhere, and if possible, you were sent home. And African ambassadors in China were essentially powerless. They couldn't do anything to defend their own people. But there was another connection to that. The big media, I'm talking about the big social media, the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the Instagram, the Twitters, when Africans protested that Chinese treatment of Africans. You put a post on Facebook, and the Chinese didn't like it. They get Facebook to pull it down, or they ban you. You put a post on the YouTube, and the Chinese didn't like it. They get the YouTube, Google to pull it down or ban you entirely from posting anything about the Chinese. And this continues to today. How can Africans, and I'm not talking about the leaders, how can Africans fight this kind of imperialism, 21st century imperialism?
Well, that's a very good question. Let me tell you, Chris, I've been to China several times. I've been to several cities. Racism, if you mix with the Chinese officials, they treat you with all the respect that you deserve. But the common people in the street, they see you as subhuman and all that. Now, the behavior of the Chinese during the COVID-19 was a very, very big surprise to me. Now, the reason why it's a surprise to me was that China, gives this free loan and huge investment in Africa. So the assumption that we all made was that China, value Africans. But of course, that their behavior at that point in time showed to the contrary. The other thing is that the Chinese knew that Africans had nothing to do with COVID-19. And yet, in their communist ideology, the way they do their own things, they decided to frame Africans. And to be honest, it got stuck, because even though some of us in UK here, you will see that when some people see Africans coming, they were almost running. I mean, the Chinese succeeded in painting anybody African to be a COVID-19 carrier. Now, the question is, what should we do? Now, the first thing is from our own government, to be honest. Our governments did not protest as they should. And the reason, again, is because they are in the pockets of China. Just as Mark Zuckerberg, or whatever his name is afraid of China to the point that China can instruct them to pull down posts, so also are African leaders. Now, what are we going to do? Let me tell you. Africans have some of the best minds in the world. What we need is, if Mark Zuckerberg was able to create Facebook, there is no reason why African designers and multimillionaires that are out there cannot bring themselves together and build an infrastructure that can compete with Facebook, but give that access to Africans to use. That's basically, one of the options that.
Well, Dr. Davidson, you just read now, you were not aware of this coming on this show today. You were not aware of what I was going to announce. I actually have announced, I have an announcement that I'm going to be making at the end of this broadcast, and I think it is the solution to the point you have just raised. Let me tell you something. I witnessed Africans shut down on Facebook. I witnessed Africans shut down on YouTube. When they protested China, they protested the French, Africans had no voice. So I began to think, what can we do? The social media is so powerful. Africans need a platform where they can discuss African issues, discuss African solutions to African problems. And I thought about it and started working on something which I was actually going to launch it today. You were not aware, and I call it Africa Town Hall. Africa Town Hall. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa Town Hall is where every African should be. It is not different from Facebook. It is like a replica of Facebook. The interface is very, very easy. Very, very easy to use. You can find it right there on your screen. That is the sign in and registration screen of africatownhall.com. You can look at the interface there. In fact, let me read the mission statement here for you guys to see. This is what the mission statement says. Africa, using your words, Dr. David, again, I never discussed this with you, but you and myself, we have been using exactly the same words. And I wrote here in the mission statement, Africa continues to be the subject of ridicule. Africans are oppressed, victimized, racially profiled, and given labels that just do not match their description. The continent continues to live at the mercy of colonialists like the French and neo-colonialists like China. Concerted efforts remain very high to keep the continent dark as in colonial days. No doubt that China blamed Africans and kicked them out for the coronavirus. When Africa dared to protest by way of Facebook and YouTube, they were either banned or post-deleted to keep them mute. When Africa protests Chinese and French empire building in the continent and the plundering of African economies, they use the big media to make sure Africans are blocked and cannot complain. Africa Town Hall is where we want Africans to discuss life and continental issues and profess solutions to Africa's own problems without censorship. They will be forced to hear us if no one is going to censor you. This is Africa Town Hall, ladies and gentlemen, and you have the web address on the screen there. It is simple. It is a replica, a complete replica of Facebook. Simple to use, simple interface. I urge every African, this is where we can take our problems to. The platform will grow, and the world will be forced to listen to us, to know what we are saying without any of them being able to shut down our voices. Dr. Davidson, please.
Congratulations. I mean, look, this is, I've been looking, I haven't tried it yet, but with the description you've given, I don't care about the tethering. I mean, of course, in every new technology, every new program has a tethering stage. I think it's important that we support it. Somebody also made me aware of another, another program, I think almost aimed on Africa, but also competing with Zoom. You know, Zoom is Chinese. Right. And I think some Africans have been able to produce, write a program that, is competing with Zoom. I'm not sure what it's called now.
I think Africa is moving, and it gives me a great joy, that you've been able to announce this while I'm on this program for the first time. So actually, both of us are making history in the same day. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, we really hope that every African out there will take advantage. Let us stop patronizing the same powers that are ridiculing us and giving us labels and racially profiling us and making us remain the dark continent, the dark continent. Please, every one of you out there, I urge you, go on africatownhall.com, sign up, have an account, invite friends. This is where we talk Africa. This is where we discuss African issues and prefer African solutions. Now, Dr. Davidson, let's talk about the French for a little bit. The French have essentially mortgaged most of French Africa. I'm talking about Cameroon. Now you listen to my first part of this broadcast where we were talking about the occupation, the colonial occupation, we'll call it, or colonial occupation of the southern Cameroons, because never did the southern Cameroons join French Cameroon. Now you may not understand the history a little bit, but there was supposed to be a joining. But historically, it never took place. Legally, it never took place. And today, Southern Cameroonians, who are now called Amazonians, are saying we want back our state as existed between 1953 and 1960. That is what the Southern Cameroonians are saying. Now, we came to this point because of systematic marginalization, enslavement by the French Cameroon under the control of the French. When you look at French African colonies, they remain the most backward countries in the continent with a record of terrible human rights. Please, how do we get rid of this French influence, overwhelming influence on African countries? Look at what Rwanda did. Cutting off from the French, Rwanda is a much better country today because they cut off the French. What is your solution, your preferred solution to this, sir?
Let me tell you, Chris, I'm happy you mentioned Rwanda. Well, I'm also happy because I didn't realize that Rwanda was once, under French colony. I'm not aware of that. Now, whatever Rwanda has done, I'm a fan of Paul Kagame. I'm a fan of that guy. Whatever that he has done that has made it possible for him today, a very small landlocked nation that went through hell, genocide, to be among, some of the best economies in Africa today, shows that Paul Kagame, there is something he knows that other African leaders don't. Now, with the French, I think the starting point there, like I said, is to learn from Paul Kagame and see what he did. I'm not sure how he did it, but I think it would be good if you can write a book to tell us how he did it. But African leaders can learn from
Paul Kagame, Dr. Paul Kagame, as you said, you were not aware, but Rwanda was a French colony.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, after the Rwandan war in the 90s, when the war was over, Paul Kagame took over and passed a decree banning anything French, changed their official language from French to English, went back to the classroom, and everybody in Rwanda was to be taught in English, and office work was to be done in English, official communiques in English, everything French. French was cut off from Rwanda after years of colonization. That is what they did.
Wow. I mean, that is great. Like I said, he's a very big fan of mine. I think what is to happen now, not every leader in the Francophone countries has got the kind of strengths that Paul Kagame has. I think that this is where African Union should come in and play a very good part. Ambassador Arikana, I know, had some fight with the French people, French government, that probably, have impacted him one way or the other. But some of her work, has actually paid off. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the French government has decided to not to be, keeping some of the foreign reserves of these African countries. And I think the next thing now to do is for the African Union and ECOWAS to come together and then work out a plan, that will support these countries, to ensure that they find ways of gaining, proper independence. I'm not a political scientist, so to be honest, I haven't got much to offer in this area. But what gives me great joy is hearing that Paul Kagame was once under this chain, and he's been able to break free. In the past, I was reading that in the past, the reason why a number of leaders in these Francophone countries could not resist was because of the past experiences, that some of their leaders who tried were assassinated or coups were organized against them.
Right.
So my hope here, and that's why I'm saying here that African Union and ECOWAS should be able to back these countries, protect them, shield them, and then probably...
But that is exactly the problem, one of the problems, Dr. Davidson. The African Union, the leader is put by the French. I'm sure you know that. The leader of the African Union is put there by the French. He is there for French interests. ECOWAS. When you talk about ECOWAS, imagine how many French countries are in there. When ECOWAS came up with the ECOs, the common West African currency, guess who dictated the terms of the ECO? Under the influence of the Ivorians, the French. So, be it the African Union, be it ECOWAS, they're essentially, they call it powerless bulldogs. Powerless bulldogs is a name. I give you another example. Look at what has been going on in the Cameroons. For 4 years, there's been war declared in Cameroon by the regime in French Cameroon on a part of on the southern Cameroons. You would think that the African Union will come in and say, hey, let's call a meeting and look into what is happening in this country when over 12,000 people have been killed, over 1 million internally displaced, over 100,000 living in refugee settlements in Nigeria, in Calabar, in Akwa Ibom, in the northern states also. You would think that the African Union would come in and say, let's do something, let's look into this problem. No, they have not as much as called for a hearing, not ECOWAS. And you guess why? Because the Cameroons is owned by the French. And when you have their leader at the helm of the AU, you can't do nothing. This is the grip. This is the grip that Africa has. That the French have over Africa.
Well, it's rather unfortunate. I know that even the Anglophone countries, that's the English-speaking countries, they are still, many of them are still under the spell of their colonial masters. But I think this is why we need the elite. We need I was about to say the educated. We need our professionals. We need our businessmen and women. We need them to come together, everybody to come together and begin to speak with one voice. I think one of the things we are not good at the moment is to get our population to reason together and to speak with one voice. And to be honest, the education system, in one way or the other, is also to blame. I have an organization which we've just formed out of the success of my video. One of the things we are planning to do is to strategize on how to reprogram the mindset of Africans. The organization is still in the formation stage. The structures are still being put together. We recognize that if Africa is to succeed in the near future, we have to have our citizens, their mindsets reprogrammed, so that we can all speak with one voice and stand firm to what we believe. If we don't do that, there's no amount of natural resources, no amount of loan from China, or what, even if they give it to us free of charge, development will be very, very difficult, because the mind is so powerful. And slavery, racism, the European-based education system we've used, they've all polluted the mindset of a typical African in such a way that we don't even realize when we are being used and abused. And I think that, to me, once we are able to get Africans to begin to reason the way they should, I think solutions will emerge in the near future.
Doctor, what do you think that in the practical way, because when you made that short clip that went viral, there was an action call, I guess, something that you wanted Africans to begin to do to change this situation. In your case, you went back to your country, Nigeria, and ran for the presidency. And what should Africans, the man on the street, begin to do to change this situation? Now, this is why this is very, very critical. Africans has lots and lots of capital invested in the diaspora, capital that should have been invested back in the homeland. It is not going in there, because you go there, you cannot do good business without the corrupt system and the corrupt politicians and so on and so forth. What should Africans begin to do from their little corners to change this system?
Again, Chris, it goes back to this idea of making sure that the mindset of Africans, they are changed. Now, listen. Now, you see, there was a post I received on WhatsApp the other day, and it simply says, that Africans are happy to elect a bad leader, providing that bad leader is their bad leader. In other words, it comes from their tribe. They prefer a bad leader from their tribe to a qualified, patriot from a different tribe. That has to change. It has to change completely if we are to say. So if you go back to the video that I made, I said that we need leaders. We need to find a way of getting rid of the current, corrupt leaders, and to give way to a new generation of leaders who understand the new world, and so that those individuals who are creative, intelligent, understand what it takes to be able to power an economy can take over. And that can only happen if the common man is willing to to sacrifice by forgetting about the little money or little change that are often given when these corrupt politicians are campaigning for votes. I think the second part is, Chris, is that there are, in fact, not everybody within every government actually is corrupt. But let me tell you why eventually they succumb to corruption. Chris, we do not have a situation in Africa where a leader sacrifices for the common good of the society and then get recognized. Chris, is very rare. The population will not be behind you when you fall. And therefore, that lack of support is one of the reasons why that even individuals who are prepared to, stand their ground in government, they know too well that if they are thrown out, nobody will come to the street to protest, and eventually they'll be the loser. I think we need to begin to change the mindset of our population so that they can support those who are prepared to stand out for their common good.
Thank you, Doctor. We are going to end this conversation here, but I can assure you I will get back to you. We're going to have much more of these types of conversations until the mentality of our people, of our governance, begin to change. We just cannot continue in this same way where Africa is derided everywhere across the globe. And I really hope that Africans, they're listening to you, they're listening to me, they're listening to the Aricanas and so on, listening to the Professor Lumumbas of Africa. These people like you are the people who want to see a different, a new Africa. And again, one of the ways to do so is to have a platform for a free speech, where you can freely express what you feel, what you think, or not just berate people, but tabulate ideas that can build maybe your own country or the continent. I will give you the last word, sir.
Thank you very much. Look, Chris, I want to thank you for the opportunity you've given to me here, and I think you're doing a great job. It was through your program that I became aware of this Ambazonia problem. I want to tell you that I don't know, for whatever reason, it's not as widely publicized as I thought it should. And so I think you're doing a very good job to make sure that people become aware of what is going on in that region. For Africa to be free, everybody in Africa has to be free. And I want to thank you once again for the opportunity to be here this evening and to share my thoughts with you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. It was a privilege having you. I hope to talk with you again.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Israel Davidson joining me from London. Before I go, I just want to update you with what is happening in Bamenda. I have been told that 2 people were shot dead. 2 people were shot dead in Bamenda today by French Cameroon forces. And as I speak, there is a curfew in the town. The soldiers, the police have resolved to have people locked home throughout the rest of the week, they said. So we are asking everybody in Bamenda, please stay home, be safe, don't go out to be killed. Now, I just want to remind you of this website, africatownhall.com. africatownhall.com. This is our own Africa Facebook, ladies and gentlemen. This is our own Africa Facebook. I like you to have a feel of it. This is not different from what Facebook is all about. You can look at it there. That is my personal homepage there. You go there, you sign in, you register. You can do everything that Facebook does. Facebook does everything that Facebook does. You can carry it out on this page. You can invite friends. You can upload videos, you can upload audios, you can upload photographs, you can do live broadcasts. That is a future we are still working on right now. Also, in the days ahead, we're going to be having the app. We're going to be having the app for the website produced out there. But we want you, ladies and gentlemen, take this out there. Let every African come here. Let us tell our story here. Let us discuss our problems here, the problems of Africa. Let us discuss them here. Maybe by so doing, we may save the continent. We may save our towns. We may save our countries. So that is the website. Go there, africatownhall.com. africatownhall.com. That is the web address on your screen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that is all that I had for you today. For those of you who cannot, Alenda, you are not receiving ABC on ground zero, please don't be worried about that. It will be back up and running either today or tomorrow, just due to some technical issues. And once more, let me thank all of you out there who supported ABC Drive. Thank you so very, very much. I just urge you, if you drafted but haven't paid yet, we only have up to the end of September, for your payment to come in. So please, I'm asking you, if you drafted for ABC and you haven't paid, try to redeem the pledge. You can go to ABC website at abcambertv.org, abcambertv.org to redeem your pledge. You can go there to redeem your pledge. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in, and good night.